Hey, it's Sandra Pike from LePage Atlantic and the Pike Group, and I have the lovely Ian Angus again from the office. And I reached out to Ian because of the amount of business that he does in the Tantallon area and the rest of Metro. But he's been around a long while as well, so I deeply do value his input. So Ian, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Gotcha. So Ian, you and I were both back in 2012 when the market, or November 2011, the ships start here and the market was just in a frenzy. And I would say probably by the fall 2012, we found out we weren't going, we didn't have the contracts, we just had first right of refusal. And the market just took it just changed dramatically. And, people who had purchased houses, let's say at the high peak, now they, had to hold on to them for a few years before they sold them. So the rest of the market could catch up to what they purchased it for. Do you feel that our market is headed that way now, given, the stat I would have given you the other day about high rigor?
I think you're going to see that for a lot of properties. I don't think you'll see as much as we did back in 2012. Just due to the fact that the inventory levels are completely different. So there's still going to be a demand now. But the peak that we saw back in March and April with house sale prices that were ridiculous in some cases, I don't think we're going to see that. So I think a big concern for agents these days is that they have clients that are expecting the same amount of money back in March and April when we had 400 listings. We've had an increase in inventory, we've had an increase in interest rates, and some people are just waiting. So it's a little bit different, I think.
Yeah. So what would you say, and I, found myself in this situation now over the past 2 months. So you would have had a seller who purchased in either 2021 or even the beginning of 2022. And for some reason now they have to sell, and, they would have bought again at the high peak. And here we are in less than a year and now they have to sell. What would your advice be to a seller at that point?
Well, I have to set the expectations properly for them, because unfortunately they're not going to be able to sell it for what they bought it for. It's going to be very difficult. There's a small chance that could happen, but unfortunately, in the market that I deal with, that's not the case. Houses that were going for close to $500,000 are struggling to sell at $420 now.
Wow.
So,
now, you had similar streets in your neighborhood that happened in Sackville, isn't that correct?
Yep.
And what was the disparity like between the prices there that you would have seen?
From when they sold.
Yeah, so let's say if a baby split would have sold in Timberley, in 2021, what would is that same baby split selling? What's that selling for now, for example, or a different type of property? Doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, that was my example earlier. So we had multiple split entry detached homes, like baby splits, that were selling in the 470, 480, 490 range, depending on their quality. And now, there's a few listed at 420s, one sold for 450. So they're still way up from 2019 or 20, but they're down $40,000 or $50,000 from the peak of March and April.
Yeah,
so it's hard to explain, but I mean, it's not hard to explain. It's hard for sellers to wrap their heads around it, but it's easy to explain. The fact is that we had, again, 200 listings back in January, February, when these houses were selling, and the demand was high. Now we have more inventory and interest rates are up, so that's
absolutely.
But they're still getting a lot more than they would have if the market had stayed the way it was from 2019 to now.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. So, it is still a great time to sell. What's interesting for me, and just a question, I know that you're very fortunate. You sell a lot of foreclosures. Are the bank's expectations the same as what a seller would be, like that you would deal with locally, or do you find any differences in the two?
No, I mean, the relationships I have with the banks they take my my word for what the value is. I mean, they're just like anybody else. I mean, I think the public has this idea that, if it's a foreclosure, it's a smoking hot deal. It is in some cases, but the
Oh, yes,
banks want to get as much money back as they can. They're just like any other seller. But
absolutely.
I think what has happened with the increase in value in properties, there hasn't been a whole lot of foreclosures that I've dealt with. I mean, there's still a few, but because the equity has gone up so high in a lot of people's homes, they have the ability to pull some equity out of there
Yes.
and pay off other debts that they may have. So they're increasing their mortgage, but they're paying off car loans or credit card debt. So there's not as many foreclosures as there was, but based on conversations I've had, it's coming in 2023.
So that just brings up like a great topic of conversation. So, when people's mortgages are due, let's say they're due for even November, if we get that next rate increase in September, for example, your house that you would have bought in 2019, 21, 22, yeah, so let's say 3-year mortgage, that would have increased. You would have definitely received equity. You're after paying down on the interest and the principal since 2019. You've already been stress test, and now you're going to be stress test again, but for a cheaper amount, right? Because of the money that you would have put down and put in. Will there be a lot of foreclosures given that? If you look at it from that perspective? Because a lot of buyers, they're just waiting. Oh, there's going to be a lot of houses come to the market because people can't afford it.
Well, I think most people that bought at the peak,
Mhm.
right, bought at a decent rate and tied
Yes.
in for five years. Most people did anyways, I think.
Yeah.
The variable rate is still decent. So I don't think they're going to see as many as they might think there'd be. Because
Yeah, I'm thinking
again,
that
back to
too.
my point, the people that were on the verge of getting foreclosed on that have more equity now are paying off other debts.
Yep.
So their ratios are still decent, even though the rates have gone up. Because
You know,
if they paid off the debts, of course.
of
If they
course, yeah,
didn't,
of course.
then
Yeah.
foreclosure's coming.
Yeah, great point. And I never really, I talked about that, but never really, went into it like to give it some deep consideration. And so we may not have those foreclosures. So, buyers, it still is a great time to purchase. And, we're just, you see agents telling people, oh, don't buy. But now is the time.
Well, I mean, if you're planning to buy, which most people do, and are going to plan to stay in that house for 5 to 10 years, buy now. If you
Yes.
think you're going to buy and then try to sell in a year or two, don't buy. And
No,
if
I agree
you're,
with you.
you're an investor looking for, a deal, probably not the best time. I would just hold off.
Now, we have our spring market that, I mean, it's not that far away, really, right, when you think about it. And we are going to have military moves. If we continue in a seller's market, because we only have, 700 homes listed now, where we used to have 3,000. Do you think there will be another frenzy of competitive offers potentially, February, March, April?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm still seeing competitive offers. It depends on the price point you're dealing with too, right?
Yes.
Like I'm typically dealing in the 600 and under range. And I'm finding that, the last half dozen listings I've had, been multiple offers and over asking still.
Nice.
So,
It was interesting to look at the stats the other day. Out of the, I think it was like 600 and change properties, maybe there was only one home that went over 250, went over $200,000. I think it was a $250,000 over asking that it did.
yeah, I don't put a lot of faith in those numbers simply
Mhm.
because they're not comparing they should have a chart like that, but they should also have the increase in list price. So
Yes.
you're not seeing these $100,000 over asking prices, but you're seeing the list price increase substantially.
I'm glad you bring that up. I just was working on the stats the other day, and you had the average house price, I think it was last month, was 542, and now it's dipped down. And then you have the, the average over asking, I think, in all of Metro was 37,000. And I think
Yeah.
back in February, it was 102. And, and is that because we are, or, most agents are, pricing the property at, at market value? Would that be the reason why then, or it's just?
No, I
Because
think, you have to rethink your strategies these days. And, you're seeing people list the properties a little bit lower than what they're expecting. And then after a week or 10 days and they're not getting any action, they're actually increasing the price to where the client is expecting. So it's not, we're gone are the days of listing at $299 and getting $450 for a semi.
Correct. Absolutely.
You're listing those semis at $399 and hoping to get anywhere over $4.
No, I would have to agree. Do you feel that the sellers know about the market and what's happening? And, you still see some people who are offering, when you get an offer, not to keep it open for 24 hours. Is that the strategy we should have now? Or, you know what, we're just taking offers? Where should that strategy be for the seller, or is it dependent on?
I think every agent's doing their own thing and giving their own advice. I personally don't believe that you could list a property and then take an offer in 24 hours or 12 hours and have enough people through the property in order to get the best value for your client. So I'm telling my clients, when I do a listing, that we will have a certain time to accept offers, like 7 or 10 days out still, but to leave any offers open for 48 hours. And I will present any offer that is sent in, preemptive or not.
So it doesn't matter for you. Like if the offer is great when it comes in, you're going to accept it.
Listen, if the listing goes on and there's a great offer within the first 24 hours, I'll discuss it with my client and give them my opinion, and they ultimately have the final decision. But this whole, like I said, I don't think the property's on the market long enough. It needs to be on longer to get enough people through the property.
But would that be price point driven?
It would be.
Yeah,
If you're pricing it, the conversation I'm having is that the prices have changed, so we need to list it either at what you're looking for or just below what you're looking for, and hopefully create some competition. But knock on wood, I've had competition on most of the listings still, but in the higher price points, you have less buyers.
Correct.
So there's less competition.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with that. Like, is it price point driven? Is it properties that are under 400,000 that, yes, they are still getting, a lot of people through the door? Or is it, properties that are over 500,000 that you would say, you know what, let's just look at the offers when they come in? Because you don't know. I mean, the average time now, I think days on market, when I did it for a single family detached, the average time on market was 16 days. I mean, you could get an offer on day 1, or you can get an offer, day 16, you don't know. So, for me, when I look at something that's over, 600,000-700,000, I don't hold offers anymore. Let's just look at what we have coming in. But now I'm getting ready to list a property that would be under 300,000. And you're right, you want to get as many people as you can through the door, because you don't want to miss that opportunity to do good by your seller, right? Or to do the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you listed that property today, who's to say that every agent that has a buyer in that price point for that area is going to see it?
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, do you feel that as we continue down 2022, that inventory is going to keep rising?
I think we're going to get a little bit of a bump after school starts of more inventory coming on, but also buyers as well. So I think the inventory levels will increase slightly, but there'll also be more buyers out there too, eating up some of that inventory. So I think we're going to go into, I still think we're going to be under 800 listings going into, October, November.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Now, I agree with you that I believe that when the military, will come here in 2023, I think that's going to spark a bit of a frenzy again, which is, great for sellers. And now Halifax, Haligonians, it's time now between now and let's say February, because you can avoid, the potential competitive offers. Do you have any predictions of, where we're headed to in 2023, or that's just like something you haven't even thought of yet?
Yeah, I honestly haven't really thought about 2023 yet. I'm still focusing on this, but I think it goes back to, for like, you and me both list more than we buy.
Yes.
And I think setting the expectations properly and having the right conversations with your clients up front, eases the pain of what's going on in the market right now. We're right at that, we've been going through the last, I don't know, couple of months where, we peaked and now we're slowly going down, and people on the same street with the same house aren't getting the same money. But, if their expectations were set properly at the beginning, it's not as difficult. I mean, I remember 3-4 years ago marketing that, hey, my average days on market is 26 days. And that was great because Halifax's average was like 75 days, right? And now people are freaking out when the house doesn't sell in the first 10 days or 5 days.
I would say in 2021, of all the houses that we would have sold, and there were quite a few of them, there was only 2 that I didn't sell in 3.5 days. And one was after Canada Day weekend. That certainly was a bomb. And I'd listed one in November on the waterfront out in Prospect, and that would have taken a little bit longer, but everything else, 3.5 days, we held offers till Monday morning, and it worked extremely well. But yeah, I don't, that is certainly not my strategy these days for my sellers. Well, Ian, it was great chatting with you. And, I can't wait till the spring market comes around. Like, I'd like to see what's going to be happening in your neck of the woods, and, just see if our predictions are going to be right, that, there could be another buyer frenzy, because I'm hoping it is for the Halifax sellers for sure.
Yeah, well, my crystal ball broke a long time ago, so I can't really tell you. And no one can, but,
Oh, I know.
Based on trends and, experience in the market, I think we'll see a little bit of a bump.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Ian. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, Sandra. Thanks.